Thank you again for joining. Before we start and I introduce our first moderator of the day, I want to introduce and welcome you to the third day of PACC conference, where we are centering Palestinian scholars, thinkers, and leaders in our conversation today. We want to thank all of the speakers who've joined us from Palestine or from overseas and who have taken the time out of their busy schedules to speak to us. Before we begin, I want to thank Wasim Shakhshir and Suhaz Azam for translating. So if you need Arabic translation, I would like to direct your attention to the bottom of your screen, where you should be able to access all meeting and webinar controls. If you click the interpretation button, it should appear as a globe, and then select the Arabic channel from the available languages. The rest of the session will then be translated to you accordingly. You can also mute the original audio. If anyone has any technical questions about translation or anything else, feel free to direct message me, Lamia, Rania, or any of the moderators for this session. We will have the live Arabic translation, so if anyone you know is interested, let them know. And that'll be on throughout today's session. If anyone wants to join later, they can register on our website, and they will automatically get the link to join for today. Now I'd like to introduce our first moderator, Lamia, who will be introducing Salman Abu Sitta as our first speaker for today.
Thank you, Basma. Hi, everyone. As Basma introduced, my name is Lamia. Just a little introduction as to who I am. I'm a senior currently attending Rutgers University in New Brunswick, and I am a core student advisor in the Students for Justice in Palestine on campus. I also work as part of the education team at PACC and want to welcome all of you to the first session of the third day. Starting us off today, we are honored to be joined by a leading scholar and thinker in the Palestinian movement, Dr. Salman Abu Sitta. Salman Abu Sitta is the founder and president of the Palestinian Land Society in London, which is United Nations accredited, and it is dedicated to the documentation of Palestinian land and people. He is the author of several books on Palestine, including the Compendium Atlas of Palestine 1917 to 1966 in English, Arabic, Spanish, and Russian editions, Atlas of Palestine 1871 to 1877 in English, and the Atlas of Return Journey from Refugees to Citizens, and over 300 papers and articles on the Palestinian refugees, the right of return, and the history of al-Nakba and human rights. He is credited with extensive documentation and mapping of Palestine's land and people for over 40 years. His widely acclaimed memoir, Mapping My Return in English and Italian, describes his life in Palestine before 1948 and his long struggle as a refugee to return home. Dr. Abu Sitta will be giving a presentation discussing his lifelong work on the right of return and presenting the tangible plan he has for how we can enact and enforce the refugee right of return. After we review the presentation together, we will be facilitating a Q&A session. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. I see this invitation as a call for each one of us to do his duty for Palestine. These are dark days. There is nothing like it in human history. There has been in world history massacres, atrocities, destruction, annihilation of people, burning of people, leaving them to die of hunger. We have seen the record carved on temple walls and in old history books. We have read accounts of Nero burning Rome, Halukah Khan turning Tigris River red, We have seen many films and museums about Nazi atrocities in World War II. We have heard about the Rwandan genocide in Africa. Human history is riddled with stories of savagery that we read about and we heard about in old times. But we have never seen before all these atrocities combined on TV screens and daily news. We have never seen before this savagery enacted before our own eyes daily. We have never seen before the criminal himself with his blood-stained hands claiming to be the victim. We have never seen before on our screens the child in a hospital with an amputated leg, not knowing where to go because his parents, brothers, sisters, aunts, and uncles are all killed. We have never seen before on our TV screens how the criminal brags about cutting off food, water, power, medicine of starving people and watching them die with glee. We have never seen before other perpetrators helping the criminal, adamant on aiding and abetting them, sending them arms and providing political support, thus allowing rivers of blood to be shed and refusing 3 times to stop this carnage in the halls of the United Nations. We have never seen before the majority of the world, 153 UN member states, voting for the end of this carnage, but ignored because of a veto, aiding the criminals, defying the will of the world. We have never seen before waves of humanity, of good people in the streets of world cities, from Chile to New Zealand, in the streets of London and New York, Paris and Berlin, calling for this carnage to stop with no avail. We have never seen before that in spite of all this open knowledge, in the days of claimed freedom of expression, the voice of the victim is silenced, denied, and vilified. We have never seen before, in the days of assumed freedom of expression, that the criminal and his victim are given reverse roles. The in his wildest imagination, could not foresee that. Yes, there is nothing like this in the history of mankind. You, we, who are witnessing all that, have a duty to fight tooth and nail for truth and justice. Otherwise, we do not deserve our humanity. I do not need to repeat ad nauseum of the hostages who must be freed, or else rivers of blood shall continue to flow, and the rubble of buildings shall cover the face of earth. Who are these hostages? There are about 200 of the settlers from various countries in East Europe carrying double nationality. Area is 12,500 square kilometers. Ask yourselves too, who are the real hostages? They are the Palestinian owners of the land occupied by these settlers. In 1948, They were driven by dozens of massacres from their homes in 247 towns and villages in southern Palestine. There are now 2.3 million refugees crammed in a concentration camp called Gaza Strip. Its area is 365 kilometers. It is only 1.3% of Palestine. There you can see the origin of these refugees in Gaza, all over Palestine, crammed in a small place called Gaza Strip now. They were not attacked on 7th of October. They were constantly attacked for 27,000 days, or 75 years, particularly in 1953, 1956, the massacre of 1956, 1967, 1971, and 1987, with frequent massacres in these periods. They were besieged and blockaded by Israel since 2007 from land, air, and sea, with controlled supplies and movements. They are the true hostages who wanted to break free and return home. Now, you must know how they became refugees in the first place. You were constantly told that Israel in all its wars was in a state of self-defense against foreign invaders. Let truth be told for once. Who was the home defender and who was the foreign invader? This map explains. The Zionist invasion of Palestine was carried out in full force starting in April 1948 by a Zionist European army of 120,000 trained soldiers. Many were veterans of World War II, formed into 9 brigades, which carried out 31 military operations in order to conquer Palestine. In 6 weeks, it attacked and depopulated 220 villages and 11 cities out of eventual 560 villages and towns. It carried out 22 massacres out of 50 that took place over the course of a Nakba. This map explains that. The red areas are areas occupied by the Haganah before there was something called State of Israel. The blue dots are villages which have been subject to massacres and they were depopulated. The names in brackets are the names of the Israeli brigade which attacked them. There were no defenders here except very small number of villagers with old rifles. This was pure and clear invasion of Zionists of Palestine. In this, massacres were a weapon of ethnic cleansing. All this took place under the watchful eye of Britain at this time, and before a state of Israel was declared, and before any Arab regular soldier entered Palestine. The news of the massacres inflamed the Arab world, and they came to help, but it was too little and too late. Eventually, the Zionist control of Palestine land increased to 78% of Palestine, and now it is 100% of Palestine. Not 1 acre of this land was obtained by just or legal means under any line in international law. What happens then is a Nakba. This is a Nakba. The people were living in the villages and cities in the red points. They were depopulated after that completely during a Nakba, and life has been extinguished in 675 ethnically cleansed villages. And where did they go? They became refugees in the refugee camps, as you can see, in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and what's left in Palestine, West Bank, and Gaza. So you ask after this, who was the aggressor? Who was the invader? And who was in self-defense? Today, there are 9 million Palestinian refugees. Their homes were in 560 depopulated cities and villages, and these were occupied and depopulated by Israeli forces. The area occupied is now called Israel, which is 78% of Palestine. For 75 years, those Palestinians never stopped claiming their right to return home. And this short history, which I explained to you, begs the question, why are the Palestinians still denied the right to return home? The right of return, Resolution 194, has been affirmed by the UN more than 130 times. It has been affirmed by the United Nations so many times and by all the elements of the international law and myriad of UN international conventions. They were all supporting the right of return. Shall I tell you some of these conventions? Yes. Fourth Geneva Convention, Article 4. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 8 and 13. The Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Article 7 and 8. The International Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, Article 5 and 6. And many, many more. Why then are the Palestinians not allowed to return home? Because the original perpetrator of the crime and his cohorts are still doing it. They have never stopped doing it for 75 years. They are the countries which vetoed the ceasefire resolutions recently. Their planes were not dropping food and medicine into Gaza. They were supplying Israel with more and more bombs. The original crime is still going on. But we are defiant. We have no intention of giving up our right of return. We do not dream of the right of return. We plan for it. We plan for it. Let us start planning the return of the refugees. First, we have to know where the refugees are. This map explains where they are, their location in various Arab countries and in Palestine. We know everything about them. We know their names. We know where they come from. And we know their property. We know their family structure. We know everything about that. 85 of these refugees are still in Palestine or around it. The rest are far away, like most of you. And who occupy their land? We made a detailed study, village by village, city by city, to find out how many Jews live in their lands. We found a startling result, like this map shows. We have found that there are 247 Palestinian village lands have no Jews today. We find that 272 village lands have very few Jews, less than 5,000. These village lands are shown here in green. As you can see, they're splashed all over the screen. Beersheba district is practically empty, save for repopulated Palestinian cities. Jewish land during the mandate is shown in blue, you can see it here, and is today fully populated by Jews. The Palestinian village lands, which have more than 30,000 Jews today, meaning increasing their number over the Palestinian owners, are shown dotted. There are very few. That is where the Jews are majority over the returning refugees. If we now repopulate Palestinian villages by the return of the refugees, we do not find any appreciable problem. No problem. The country is basically empty where Palestinians can return. In Galilee, for example, and the Little Triangle and Beersheba, there is already a sizable Palestinian people ready to welcome their kith of kin. Then where are the Jews? Jews live theoretically in 924 localities with a total population of about 5.5 million Jews in the year 2020. But they are within the armistice line of 1949. The distribution of these localities is revealing. Only 14 of these localities have a population of 100,000, and only 12 have a population between 100,000 and 50,000, and 20 localities between 20,000 and 50,000. That means an important conclusion. I'll repeat again. That means that 87% of Jews live in only 55 localities, or 5% of all localities, and the area they occupied is 1,400 square kilometers, or 6% of Israel's area. I repeat again, 87% of Jews live in 6% of Israel's area. It's interesting to observe that this area where the majority of Jews live is now almost the same area they lived in during the British Mandate. So the remaining settlements are very small. They are dotted over the refugee land in order to prevent their return. But if we return, there will be minor displacement for the Jews willing to live in free Palestine. So we then come to the next question. We would like to plan the route of return. Here we start with the case of Al-Bas camp in Lebanon. You can see the map shows the original villages of the refugees who are now living in this camp. It also shows they can travel only 25 kilometers to reach Palestine and only 5 kilometers to reach the first village in Palestine. And we can repeat this exercise for all refugee camps in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and of course Gaza and the West Bank. It's very easy to return. You can walk, you can ride a bicycle, you can take a small trip in a car. When the refugees arrive home, they will only find the debris of their homes buried under the Jewish National Fund planting trees. These so-called JNF parks are designed to hide the debris of the destroyed and depopulated Palestinian villages. Therefore, JNF is a war criminal, but it is classified as a tax-exempt charity. Tax-exempt charity dedicated to improving the environment. That is how it is classified in UK and USA. Now, our task, therefore, is to rebuild these destroyed villages. We can do that. We have a detailed plan how to do that. Let me start with one village called Al-Qastal in Jerusalem district. First, we have to locate Al-Qastal from our rich data inventory. We can find maps about Al-Qastal in different scales, in different dates, and different times, till finally we find the Israeli map which shows Al-Qastal destroyed. Second, we chart the route of return from the refugees camp to the village. They are now in Suwaylah camp in Jordan. We know where they are located, the people of Al-Qastal village. We then chart their route going back home to the village. That's it. They arrive to the village in a short bus drive. The next thing will be to redesign the destroyed Al-Qastal. The young engineer architect you see here is Yazan Nasrallah. He is the son of Qastal. He has won first award of rebuilding the Qastal village, his own village, and rebuilding his grandfather's house. This competition is completed now for 8 years, and we are still going on. We managed to have plans for 50 or 60 villages, and in which 270 young Palestinian architects have participated in the last 8 years. Now we come to Gaza. Gaza, the defiant, the Stalingrad of Palestine, the long-term concentration camp, the home of resistance, not immortalized in movies like others. These young people in Gaza were determined to return, even though they were shot, killed, and maimed. They wished to break free from the concentration camp. Of course they have to. It has a density of 8,000 persons per square kilometer, and they can literally walk to their homes. The settlers who occupy their land are sparsely populated at 7 persons per square kilometer. And their land still empty. They are in refugee camps in Gaza, as you can see, crowded, very crowded. And there is the fictitious armistice line shown in red, but their land is still empty. You can see that. It's still empty. There's very few settlers. They want to break free and return home after 75 years. On October 7, 2023, some of them tried to do that. But then, who is occupying their land? It's empty now. Who is occupying their land? The settlers from Eastern Europe. They live in 212 tiny settlements. Their total population is 150,000 all. All of this in Southern District. 150,000 settlers. They are less than one refugee camp in Gaza. It's amazing how this imbalance of population and of land. This is indeed travesty of justice. And what travesty indeed. Now, Israel, military war criminals, they want to displace those Palestinian refugees again to a new refugee camp with no return ever, to throw them away in Sinai Desert forever. What's more logical, legal, or fair? Is it these settlements to stay there, or these settlers should leave Palestinian land, either to go peacefully to Tel Aviv or go to Lid Airport to return to where they come from? Here we have the answer to that. There are only 212 small settlements. Their population is 150,000. If they leave, we tried this exercise, we found that it is very simple and very easy for them to return to Tel Aviv or elsewhere. It will take probably less than a day or two, maximum a week. We combine them into 9 groups, and they could be evacuated peacefully in less than a week. Here is the picture of our case in Palestine, a tragic history never seen before in any dimension. But I conclude by saying I have faith, unshakable faith, that the march of justice will reach its destination. I have faith that this child will return home. In spite of all the overwhelming power against defenseless Palestinians, in spite of unprecedented genocide committed daily, plainly, savagely, in view of the criminal world and the silent world, I believe the future is for justice in Palestine. 7 decades and 5 months of showering death failed to break the will of the Palestinians or to diminish their spirit. But you, every one of you or us, have a duty. At your own home, teach your children that Palestine is and will always be their home. In your work and environment, speak for Palestine. Day and night, never stop. Do not be intimidated. You are on the just side. At the world stage, spread the truth about Palestine. I ask, who is afraid of truth? Only the criminal is afraid of truth. The guilty is afraid of truth. I conclude by something you all know. Palestine shall be free from the river to the sea. Make this your unshakable duty. Thank you.
Wow. I want to start off first by thank you, Dr. Salman, for that informative and thorough video. And inshallah, we will see a pre-Palestine within our lifetime. I also want to thank you for joining us today and being willing to answer any questions we might have. You have such a vast amount of research happening in the background, and just hearing a bit of everything and the results is genuinely just so interesting. Before I move into some questions we have, I want to remind everyone to use the chat to type out any questions you may have throughout the session. We will get to them all in the end in the order they are received, and we will only be taking questions from the chat. And so Dr. Salman, I do have some discussion questions for you. The first one is, so Dr. Abu Sitta, you actually are a survivor of the Nakba. So this has been a very like closely personal experience to you, and all that's been happening recently, we are sure is very personal and intense for you as well. Can you discuss how that experience was and how that has driven your research and your current work? You're muted.
All right. Thank you, Lamia. and thank you all for being here today. My heart is aching because a few minutes ago, I was watching the news in Gaza, and I see for the fourth day, there is a fourth massacre since Thursday about people who were rushing to receive aid, who are starving as a part of genocide. And when they rushed to the trucks, they were machine gunned by the Israeli army. This is the fourth day, for the fourth time, this happens. And the whole world, who is mistakenly called the free world, is absent, is not free. It's served the interests of colonialism and all kinds of evil. We are living in very difficult times. In my opening remarks, I say that. It's really very odd, very strange to see this projecting in our life, in this period of life. We have never seen things like that splashed on the TV screens. People know about it. United Nations meet, all countries vote, and their votes means nothing, and nobody is coming forward to help Palestinians in Gaza. Palestinians in Gaza has always been the symbol of all Palestine. They have never raised a flag other than that of Palestine. They are the citadel of resistance. And that's why Israel wants to destroy them. Because Israel, as you all know, from even the Zionist books, they say Palestine is a land without people. And it is not a myth. In fact, it is not a myth. It is a plan to make Palestine as a land without people. As you can see, they empty Palestine from its people in 1948 by depopulating 550 towns and villages. Not only they depopulate them in an operation which is in international law called ethnic cleansing, but they chase those refugees in refugee camps outside Palestine even. For example, in 1953, 1956, in 1967, 1971, and 1982, and of course, in Gaza, particularly in Gaza, they are besieged and blockaded since 2005. So not only they have been expelled from their homes in 1948, they are not only they were ethnically cleansed, because this is obviously a war crime, the ethnic cleansing is now turned into genocide, because chasing them in their exiling camps did not kill them all. So now the plan is to kill them literally. And yet the world is silent. United States, where you live, 3 times they veto a resolution to stop the ceasefire. They did not say anything except to stop the ceasefire. It did not allocate blame or praise for anybody. It just say stop the ceasefire. And stopping the ceasefire would have saved Palestinians from 100,000 people killed and injured. Never in the history of the world, not even the Second World War, that so many people killed in such a short time, less than 4 months, in the sight and view of the whole world, and they see it day by day, and they do nothing. This will go in history. I'm sure it will be punished, but not only punished, and all the criminals will be brought to The Hague. More than that, everyone who has a part in this should be penalized for what they have done. Now, this is for the near future. But for today, you young people who are listening have a duty to stand up for your country, for Palestine, even if you're not Palestinian. If you are human, you have to stand up for humanity. And humanity means that you stand for justice. And it is not a difficult thing for anyone today to know what is justice and what is not justice. Very clear, very clear. You don't need to read old history books or go to law school. You just need to have a conscience and have a duty to the humanity to which you belong. Now, in your question, I am survival of a Nakba. I have seen it when I was 10 years old. But there's only one thing I would like to tell you, very small thing. As a child, I was very, what shall I say, not surprised, I was intrigued by who are these people who came from Eastern Europe to kill us and take our land. I never saw a Jew before at that time. I don't know how they look like. Young people, older people in my family and neighborhood, they say they come from a place called Poland or Russia or Ukraine, and they speak Babylon languages, and they came in smuggler ships to our shores, and they were protected by the British. But I asked myself, who are these people? Why do they come to kill us? Why do they come to take our land and home and destroy us? What have we done for them? Why did they come here? And that, as a child, was a problem for me. It took me decades to study and map Palestine and examine the whole history of Palestine. And when I was doing my PhD in England, I checked out the Royal Geographical Society and various offices in England, and then in Europe, and then in the United States and United Nations. After 40 years or so, we have produced a lot of things under the formation of a society I formed in London 24 years ago, called Palestine Land Society. From this now, we have Atlas Palestine 1917 to 1966 in Arabic and in English and in Spanish and in Russian. We also published an atlas called Atlas Palestine 1871 to 1877. Why is this special? Because this is after the British survey, which came to Palestine to make plans of it. We have opened the old boxes of that mission and produced the Atlas of Palestine. Now, that atlas is important to me because we located 13,000 place names in this atlas, and none of them has a Jewish name or a Jewish colony. That was the map atlas of Arab Palestine before the onset of the Jewish colonial scheme, which accelerated, of course, after Balfour Declaration. So our case is very simple. If there is no Palestine, there is no Lebanon, there is no Egypt, there is no Jordan. We are part of this fabric of the Middle East. Jerusalem is Palestinian longer than London is English, longer than any European city which have not been recorded in history except in the last 1,000 years. We have 4,000 years history. How come people come in smuggler ships in the middle of the night, aided by British guns, saying that they are the original Palestinians and we are not? I can't imagine that Netanyahu, the Polish, can claim that with a straight face. But we know that very clearly with the stand of the United States, that they say, if there is no Israel, we have to invent one. They are creating a military base in the area to control the Middle East. Well, if it is a military base, why don't they drag it in the sea and make it a big military base? If they say it has some value for somebody, like they produce microchips, well, they can have a Silicon Valley in the island of Cyprus. Why should they destroy a people of long history, 14 million people, and in fact, upset the whole world system in the last 75 years just to create a military base. After all, the Americans have military bases in almost all Arab countries. So why do they need Israel? And the Jews themselves, why do they need Israel? They're living happily in the United States and Europe. Why do they do that? Why do they create a bad name for themselves? I know many, many, many Jews who disown Israel and disown Zionism. So, in brief, to tell you, young people, don't drop the idea of Palestine because it is a right. It is history, it's geography, it's the future. Don't let people apply all kinds of pressure on you by inverting the names and description. The victim becomes the criminal, and the criminal becomes a victim. And this is most unusual in history. I don't know any case in history in which roles are reversed. And if you challenge that, saying, I am the victim, you are banished, you are penalized. If you are in a job, working in a job, you may be fired from your job. Amazing. What's the meaning of freedom of expression? If you can't tell the truth, the daily truth, the visible truth, the truth which is unquestionable. I mean, we're not discussing something in old history. People can see this. And as you well know, in the last 4 months, good people, young people like you, in many, many, many cities around the world, from Chile to New Zealand, they come to the streets and say, not in my name, justice for Palestinians. They broke the wall of silence, the criminal silence, which really conceals the crime. You know, in the International Criminal Court, it's based on Rome Statute of 1998. And in that Rome Statute, which defines what war crime is, it says the war criminal is not the only one who shoots, not the only one who orders, not the only one who gives a political order for that, but also it's the people who prevent the knowledge of the crime, who stop you from telling the crime. He is also a war criminal. So the field is for you open, and you are on the right side. And believe me, the truth, as I just said a moment ago, who's afraid of the truth? Only the criminal. The truth is like the light. The light shines the darkness. And a lot of those people want you to stay in darkness. So carry your light and keep it that way.
That's such a beautiful response, to just keep carrying the light and continue, fighting for liberation and fighting for freedom. Actually, our theme for this conference is the future of Palestine. And for many of us, it's actually something new that we are really believing in and imagining a future where Palestine is free and is liberated. Your work on the right of return, however, has been your life's work. How did you come to do this research and commit to this work?
Well, I hope I explained some of that in my talk, and let me make a little publicity. Go to our website, Palestine Land Society website. It's in Arabic and in English. www.plands.org. And in this, we explain that and how the idea developed all the time. It really is straightforward because there is a crime committed. We try to restore justice, and the reason we created this plan is that we say, as we have mentioned, the right of return to us, to Palestinians, as described in the following way. It is sacred because it's in the heart of every Palestinian. Nobody ever will say, I'm not Palestinian and I have no home country. That's number one. Number two, it's legal. um, um, as I have explained, it is enshrined in every article of international law. Third one, when my friends in Europe and somewhere else, they say, but how can you do it? We tried to create that plan, and we found out, to my surprise personally, that most of the country is still empty, and most of the refugees can return home, and those who areas in which 87% of the Jews, Israeli Jews, are there today, can be described by three cantons: Canton, Tel Aviv Canton, Haifa Canton, West Jerusalem Canton. And the system for accommodating those Jews who wish to live in a democratic Palestine, free of Zionism, that's a basic principle. If they want to do that, they can live freely and do everything they want in these three cantons, like Switzerland. So it is feasible. And we say it is inevitable because justice must always prevail. You can create injustice, you can force it, but only by the force of arms. But the force of passage of time, force of conscience, force of justice is the only one which is lasting. You can create unusual situation, unjust situation. You can do that by force. But as long as the force is there, you can maintain it. We know from history, maintaining anything by sheer force does not last. So the question is, the main principle I always insist on, especially among you young people, don't ever give up. Don't ever give up, because the whole world cannot take your right from you. Only if you say, I have no right. Only if you say, I abandon my right. Or if you deny who you are or your identity, and you commit a crime against your ancestors and your history, which is not the case. So my advice is always this: never give up. Force has a limited shelf life. Justice has unlimited life. Can I excuse myself? It's very late for me here.
No, you're doing amazing, honestly. You keep saying such amazing. I'm a student organizer, and so just hearing a lot of the quotes you say, I am writing them down because I want to use them with my comrades as we continue to work for like a liberated Palestine. So you're doing amazing. Thank you so much. It's
Thank you.
actually so
Anyone
interesting.
who would like to read more, I really advise. There are a lot of material in the website and on our Facebook. And I ask young people who are much more clever than me in Instagram and these things, convert these solid facts into digestible elements in Instagram or Twitter, what I call it X now, or that kind of thing. This I cannot do because I'm involved in heavier things. You can make this big meal into little sandwiches like Instagram. So do that, please.
Inshallah, we will, honestly. We do have two more questions. The first question is from within the chat. Somebody is asking, why have not enough studies been conducted to prove that the current Jews occupying our land have no relationship to the Jews that have lived temporarily for a short period of time in part of Palestine to refute their claim to any historical relation to the land?
Well, there are a lot of studies made on that, and there are a lot of studies made on the origin of the Ashkenazis, who are the European Jews who created Zionism. There are, for example, what I call my friend Avish Leim, professor in Oxford. He say, I am an Arab Jew, and his mother told him Zionism is an Ashkenazi thing, which is quite true in many ways, absolutely true historically. It was created, Zionism, that is, in Russia or Eastern Europe for reasons which are very well known by now. And then they decided, many of them, to leave Europe. In the beginning of the 20th century, they tried to go to England, and lo and behold, who's stopping them from coming to England? Balfour. Balfour then was prime minister. In 1905, he issued what's called the Aliens Act. And in this act, he prevented European Jews from coming to England. And they took revenge. Instead, they went to the United States, and now they are doing very well in the United States. But Balfour himself, after 70 years from this act, he created the infamous Balfour Declaration. It's very strange. The man who does not want the Jews to come to England issuing that, but he's very clever. He's politically very clever man, because he said, I don't want the Jews to be in England. Let me send them somewhere else where I can use them as a military base for our colonial interest. And that is exactly the reason he issued Balfour Declaration. Not because he wants to find a home for the Jews, because he's a kind man. He doesn't want them in England, and he issued laws to prevent them from coming to England, and he sent them over to Palestine so that they can serve the British interest. At that time, the key question was protection of the Suez Canal. And even now, the same idea is emphasized, that Israel is a Western colonial base. I'm sure you must have heard Biden saying, if we don't have Israel, we have to invent one. So believe me, when this subject comes up all the time, I don't really get involved in where they come from, who they are they Semitic or not? What is the meaning of Semitic? Semitic, by the way, is not a group of people, it's only a language, and it's used wrongly by the Germans in the 19th century to call their citizens who are Jews, call them Semites. But there's no meaning. I don't get involved in all these discussions. My case is very simple. I am Palestinian. My father, my grandfather, I have documents of my family from 1800, for example, and before that. So I am Palestinian. I'm living in Palestine. Some people came from outside. Let them come from the moon. Let them come from anywhere else. I don't care. All I say, they try to take my home and land and make me a refugee, and they tell the stupid world, the conspiring world, that they are the original Palestinians, and they are not. I don't buy that, and I fight against it. So I don't get involved in the history of how this happened and so on. It's very simple. I was living in my home and my family. Someone knocked at the door with a machine gun. He shot, and my family expelled them and said, God told me this is my house. I don't buy that. So always think of yourself as a Palestinian who is subject to a foreign, vicious, criminal force try to uproot him from his country. What his motives are, whether it is right or wrong, this is another story. That's what I mean.
Thank you for that. We do have a couple more questions. Sorry. So
Can we have
in
one
the
last question?
we do have two more. Sorry. Someone in the chat is asking, there seems to be a very strong evangelical Zionist drive to protect Israel and vilify the Palestinians at all costs. Can we really change their undying will to cleanse us and besiege our land by applying the methods we have been asked to apply, or will we find ourselves in conflict again and again due to their extreme determination and hatred for us? Can we accomplish this without finding ourselves in endless wars?
The evangelicals in the United States, 40 million people working for Israel, is a very sad thing. These poor people are absolutely stupid. Because if you really want to be Christian in the real sense of the word, you should first of all look at Palestinians. The people of Bethlehem and Nasra, they are the true Palestinians. They are the true Christians. If some of us tend to be Muslims in the 4th century, that's their choice. But if they did not tend to be Muslims in the 6th century, I'm sorry, they would be Christians. And the people who call themselves Christians in Europe and those who immigrated to the United States in the 19th century, they are the people we taught them to be Christians. We sent emissaries to tell them how to be Christian. So how can we be the secondary party and they are the primary party? St. Paul went out from Palestine to teach them how to be Christian. And how do you ignore the people who taught you to be Christian and work against them? So this is a matter of religious ignorance. Without their votes in the United States, nobody will bother to know them and what they do. But they are a political force. And I hope if they have true Christian beliefs, they should care about people in Bethlehem cannot go to church in Jerusalem, except they have a pass, except if they cross so many barriers. The people in Nasra, as you see sometimes in the some picture things, if Jesus Christ was here, he would need 6 permits to reach Bethlehem. So I'm sorry, I hope they get educated, because basically they are absolutely ignorant. I mean ignorant. Ignorant means lacking knowledge. It's not a swearing word. It's meaning that lacking knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. No, your last
Right?
question, I promise. Last question. Thank you so much. Your wisdom and insight is genuinely so amazing. And so the last question is, where do you see the Palestinian struggle for the next 10 years?
Oh, well, let's look at population and look at geography. All right. Geography, population. Now we are 14 million people. My guess in 2030, we will be 18 million people, which is, by the way, the same number of population of Egypt during Jamal Abdel Nasser, 1948. Secondly, geography, we know Palestine very well. We know every square acre or every acre where it is. We have documents to know who owns it. We have title deeds. We have all that. So to create a country, you need 3 elements. You need geography, where they live. You need the people themselves, and you need the law which govern them, right? That's how any country is. So we are 100% in geography, we know it is. And we have, luckily, which is because we have very strong family ties, we are still very much, we have a bond of the family and the clan, and we have also demographic records of us. The law is very clear. From the beginning of the 20th century, the law for the self-determination is sacrosanct. There is no question about it. And if you, for example, heard at ICG, I recommend you hear the presentation of Professor Ralph Wilde, W-I-L-D, of University College London at the ICG. It really describes the right of self-determination for us very clearly. All right? Now, these are the given items. Now, we have been struggling for freedom for 75 years. Now, as I said before, I repeat again, I never lose hope. The question is when and how. Well, it's speculation, but I could say there are three possibilities for the end result. A quick one, medium one, long-term one. A quick one, Third World War, where the structure of power in the world is changed completely, and people who support Israel or people who think Israel should be continue to be planted in the middle of the Arab world do not give it that strength. So very simple, they wither away. Some people, I'm sure, many Jews would like to stay in Palestine, but they are not Zionists, because Zionism is the element which creates the wars, and therefore no peace ever will happen with Zionism is still in force, which is very well known. Fascism in Italy is the only reason why Italy is accommodated, and same thing, Nazism in Germany. When it ended, Germany became a country. So that's the first one. The second slow, medium stage is if the world really say to Israel, enough is enough. We know what you are, we know who you are, and you cannot continue to kill and rob and destroy people. This is what happened in South Africa, for example. The third one, long term, that with time, the idea of Israel becomes irrelevant. Why do you need that? I mean, Jews are enjoying very high positions everywhere, and the world structure does not need localized powers in areas. People can exercise power through satellites, through media, through other things. You don't need to create physical military bases and so on. So the idea will wither away. And I would not be surprised if much of that comes from Jews themselves. As you know, there are Jews for right of return, there are Jews for peace, there are maybe, and it is very, very correct thinking that the Jews should say, Israel is a danger to us. And if that idea develops very much, then it could be worked in. But there is a last one, which I see now from my friends inside Israel who tell me there is a lot of quarreling in Israel itself. There is a quarreling between the Haredim and the old Ashkenazis. There is quarreling between those who are militarily based and those who want to live peacefully. There are a lot of things happening. And so the turmoil in Israel itself would probably lead Western powers to say, well, probably Israel is a losing exercise for us. But no matter what, we are talking about the time. The end conclusion, Palestine will be free from the river to the sea.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abasetta, for your time, your wisdom, and your insight today. I know that I'm speaking on behalf of many people here, but we learned so much new information about Palestine, the land, and the right for return. Inshallah, we will all see a liberated Palestine within our lifetime. And that concludes all our questions for today. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
I'd love to have been with you in person, but it's a long flight. And now here we are. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for just being here.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your engagement during this informative session. And of course, Dr. Salman Abu Sitta for taking the time with all that is going on and being with us today. I found it so interesting to just learn about the empty lands and how the settlers kind of forced themselves into these three clusters, specifically within Tel Aviv and Haifa. I can't wait to read more about Dr. Abu Sitta's research in his books and within his memoir, to learn more. And I'm going to hand it back now to Besma. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Lamia. Thank you for that beautiful presentation, for moderating it for us. So I do want to remind everyone, you should have gotten this from your email and WhatsApp, but there has been a slight change to the schedule. So we are going to end off now. If you could I know it's a little over time, but we're going to have our PAC conference remarks with our Executive Director, Rania. Then we are going to have a lunch break until 3 o'clock. From 3 to 3:50, we will have our originally planned schedule with Dr. Hassan Jabbareen, and then 4:45 with Mustafa Barghouti. And Dr. Hassam Zumlot has had to shift to the last session, so he'll be on from 4:50 to 5:30. There was, as you know, all of our leading scholars are handling and dealing with a lot, so there did have to be a change. So we will have lunch after this. Right now, I am very excited to share with us our Executive Director, Rania Mustafa. I do want to just share some information about her. So next slide. Thank you, Rania. So Rania Mustafa has a passion for empowering those around her to achieve their highest potential and a background in community development and strategic planning. Rania serves as the Executive Director of the Palestinian American Community Center. Rania prides herself on her established bonds with those in her community. She has a master's in management from Harvard Extension School with graduate certifications in nonprofit and strategic management. She's held several workshops on various aspects of nonprofit management and served on various community coalitions and boards. Rania's purpose in life is to help guide people through the crossroads of their lives and emerge as stronger individuals and contributors to society. During her time at NYU, Rania studied identity development and how communities play a role in facilitating that process. Rania is also a mom of 2 kids, and I'm very proud to say a very close best friend of mine, and I'm honored to be introducing her today.
Hi everyone. It's well, it says allow recording. I don't think we're allowed. Okay. Hi everyone. This is thank you, Vesma, for that very kind introduction. I apologize, my voice is not what it should be today. It's been a stressful few days, and I want to just start off with really giving a shout out to our wonderful, wonderful team that really has been working tirelessly to put together this beautiful conference. So please, let's give if you want to unmute and give an actual applause, or if you want to just do a reaction, I want to give it a shout out to Besma, our Palestine Education Director, our wonderful team that's online right now, Lamia, Sireen, Abir, that are being our tech moderators, and our team that's been working around the clock that can't join us right now, Fadia, Mona, Reem, Mahdi, Fida, and Tasneem. So please, everyone, let's give them a round of applause. Yes. So first off, I really apologize. And our Arabic translators, yes, our beautiful, wonderful Arabic translators, Wasim, Shakhshir, and Suhaz Dam, was actually listening in on the Arabic translation on my phone. And it was very amazing to hear how great they were doing. They were doing a really great job. So just as a reminder, if anybody knows anyone who prefers to listen to something in Arabic, please do listen to it you're welcome to just join and listen to it there. Like I was doing, I was listening to this here and listening to it on my phone. So just a couple of things. I'm sorry, as you can tell, my voice is not really here, but I'm trying. So just a couple of things also before we start. I want to also thank all our wonderful sponsors. So I want to start off with the Passaic County Cultural and Heritage Council that really made our Friday event possible. Aqid Medical Center, El Basha, who donated lunch yesterday, American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, ABC, Coalition of Palestinian American Organizations, There's One Charity, Dr. Nael Abu Tabikh, Friends of Sabil North America, Green Apple Pharmacy, HomeNet Realty, Islamic Center Passaic County, Canoon Restaurant, Law Office of Ma'moon Mustafa, and Mukhmas Charity Fund, National Students for Justice in Palestine, New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, Palestine Legal, Palestine Salon, the Olive Bistro, the U.S. Palestinian Council, and USCPR. It's really been an honor to first be sponsored by all these wonderful organizations and different businesses. So I do highly encourage you all to check them out. They are in our program booklet. We encourage you to check them out and support these Palestinian organizations and these Palestinian businesses. So with that, I'm not going to take up too much time because I know next is lunch, but I just wanted to kind of ground us in what has been happening at PACC. What is the point of this conference? What's been happening? Yesterday, Besma and I were reflecting with the last in-person day, how the conference actually really worked very well in many ways in terms of how we built one thing from the other. So we started off Thursday with a pre-conference debut with where we focused on children. And we had we had over 100 kids in the center. We were able to do letters to Gaza, birds of Gaza that were led by its various different staff members. We read stories, we connected with our identity, and we really built community. And it's heartwarming and beautiful to see, not only on Thursday, but every day at PACC, where you're seeing young generations that may never have even stepped foot into Palestine, connecting with their Palestinian identity, or if you're not even Palestinian, connecting with the Palestinian struggle. The next day on Friday, we transitioned to cultural resistance. We started off with a beautiful art gallery where we had several different artists, pour out their hearts into different art pieces that we displayed. It was really beautiful seeing people walk around showing their family their art pieces while also just admiring and seeing all the different art that was displayed. Afterwards, we went into Depka and Tatriz workshops, which is something that we do offer year round at PACC. So we do encourage, if you've missed it on Friday, please make sure to catch our next one. And if you're not local, we actually can come to you. So just make sure to reach out to us, and we're happy to help make those connections. It was really beautiful. And then we ended the night. We actually then transitioned to a surprise treat where we showed our documentary, the 75th anniversary of the Nakba documentary, which was actually very alarming for me because I haven't actually watched the documentary since May, since last time we screened it. And rewatching it, it just was so alarming to see the parallels between what's happening right now in Gaza and what's happening in the Nakba. And I remember sharing the reflection, just saying that I remember when we were sitting and listening to these stories and recording these stories, I felt so far removed. Like this is something of the past that hopefully we'll never ever be able to see. But I felt so blessed to be able to record this oral history. But in reality, what was happening is that this is what's happening right now. Exactly the same stories, the same everything from the attacking of families, attacking of women, attacking of children, attacking of villages, the scare tactics that were used, everything, the removal of people, the displacement of people. So for me, it was I think on one level, like a heartache, obviously, because it's like we're reliving history, but it also, in a way, justified what us as Palestinians have been saying since day one, that this is nothing other than ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. And that's what this has been since day one. And the reason why we all know this is because of our historic and generational trauma and our historic memory of knowing that this has happened again and what would keep them from it happening again. And what we hope is that this is the last time that this happens and that the next step is a free Palestine where we can all live in liberation. You can find the film. It's actually since October 7th. We launched it. It's open to the public. It's on YouTube. I'll have one of the tech moderators, or afterwards I'll put in the link. You're welcome to watch it. We actually do workshops with it. So if anybody would like, we can bring out, some of the people that were featured in the film. Or if you'd like, we can do a guided discussion as well, whether in person or virtually. Then we transitioned to yesterday, which was a beautiful day where we had just back-to-back workshops, and it was really nice to see, from going, and it actually worked out really well. We started with Amr Baddar, who had a huge emphasis on how do you engage the media and how do you hold them responsible for their role in this genocide and their role in the continuous ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And then he was saying that the Palestinian struggle is not monolith. There's so many different ways we have to be approaching this. And there's no right or wrong way, which actually transitioned beautifully into the rest of the day because the next set of speakers were Sami Shaban and Leila Haddad, who have family in Gaza. And they were talking about the political ways that you can advocate by, speaking to your local representatives. Leila Haddad is part of a lawsuit where she's suing President Biden and his administration for their complicity in a genocide. And so it was really nice to see the different complexity of how you can advocate for the Palestinian struggle. And then we ended with Linda Sarsour, one of the strongest Palestinian American organizers, who she ended with, how do you organize, right? So how do you not necessarily play the politics, but how do you play the grassroots organizing, community organizing role? So, and then we bring today, and this is how we transition into today, which is the most important thing, which is centering the voices of Palestinians and making sure that that's at the forefront of our struggle, and that's at the forefront of what we do, and that's at the forefront of what we ask. So we hope, again, this has been really a full circle in many ways of how we've been trying to approach this. And I also want to shout out that this is the first time in, I think, 4 years that we've done it, this conference in person. And it was really important for us to do it in person this year because of the need of us to be in community with one another. It can feel very isolating when you are in a world like Dr. Abusita was just saying, where people are seeing a very different reality than what you are experiencing. And sorry, if you don't mind just muting. So it's very, it's a different reality. I remember the first night on Friday, someone with almost tears in her eyes came up to me and just said, "Thank you so much for putting this space together." She's like, "It's so hard pretending that I'm okay. It's so hard pretending that, I have to be sensitive to all sides of the story when I know my reality, I know what my people are going through, and I know that I'm on the right side of history." So being able to have this space and being able to connect with one another, whether it be virtually or in person, is very important. So with that, I know we're going to end in lunch in 5 minutes, but I just want to give a quick prelude as to what we do at PACC and why this is important. So as the same way of what we're doing in the conference and all the different ways of how we're connecting things, at PACC, that's what we're about. We're about creating safe spaces where people could navigate who they are, what their identity is, what's their relationship with the struggle, and all its different complexities. Whether you be Palestinian, Arab American, or not Palestinian and just feel with the Palestinian struggle, this is your place to be. This is your place to ask your questions. This is your place to understand, and this is your place to be in community. At PACC, our mission is to strengthen and sustain ties to Palestinian heritage while empowering the success and well-being of the entire community. We do this through 5 main focus areas. The first being educating about Palestine. The second is empowering the community. The third is civically engaging with the larger community. The fourth and fifth are social services and referrals, where we try to help people holistically live their best lives and not only focusing on one facet or the other of who they are and how they present themselves to the world. So the last few months, the last now 5 months, have been very difficult on many levels. And I do encourage, I see the donation link that kept popping up in the chat. I do encourage you all, even if it's $5, $10, $15, whatever you can give, monthly, one time, quarterly, whatever you can give, please give what you can. It really does make a big difference for us and it keeps us going. I think in the last 5 months, we've realized how pivotal it is that we have organizations like PACC, not only in New Jersey, but we have had people from across the country call us asking for advice, asking for guidance, and also asking for ways of dealing with the craziness that we've been dealing with for the last 5 months. What I'll tell you is from our experiences, what we're seeing and what's a little scarier than before is that there is an active movement to silence us as Palestinians. And one thing I'd like to say as Palestinians is when you try to silence us, know that we will come back louder and stronger than ever. And I think that's what the organization and PACC has shown in these last 5 months, that despite many different ways of trying to silence us, whether it be through grants, whether it be through actual calling us and saying maybe needing us to defend this or explain that or whatever it may be, we've come back louder and stronger. We know who we are, we know what we stand for, and we will not back down from our principles and our values, and we will not stop fighting for a free Palestine. And that is our goal and that is our mission. And so it's really important that we continue building these, spaces. We continue having these important conversations, and we continue to challenge the status quo, right? So even if people tell you that this is not what's acceptable right now, which I've had people say that, stop saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's hurting the movement. Or stop saying, we've had a grant ask us, please remove the terms free Palestine from your application and we will consider you. And our response is, don't consider us. We are who we are. We're proud of who we are. And you'll either accept us or you don't, because in the end of the day, I think that this is what this moment in history is telling us, which is that we need to get our strength and resilience from the people of Gaza, who, despite everything, are still holding on to the idea of a free Palestine, who are still holding on with every fiber of their being to their faith and to the reality that we will see a free Palestine. And if they can do it, then we have to do it. And not just do it, we have to do it, and we have to stand by it and be stronger than ever. And I think that's what's telling about this movement, is I think in the past, many times our community has been riddled with fear or have been held back by fear. And I think this is the time where we're challenging and we're saying, come at us, basically. Like, this is us. So you either like it or you don't. But we know that we're on the right side of history. We know that the general population are are leaning towards us, are working with us, are supporting us. We know that in a matter of time, the people of power will also come to this side of history. But for now, you will not break us, you will not change us, and you will not threaten us. We will continue to exist, we will continue to resist, and we will continue to hold on to our Palestinian spirit no matter what. So with that being said, I want to just end with these final thoughts that, a lot of people ask sometimes, like, what can we do to not be, threatened, or what can we do to not be targeted? And my response is, unfortunately, right now, just being Palestinian is a target. Just being Palestinian is a sign of people being afraid. So just continue being you. But what I want to challenge everyone to do is to really, really think, what is my role in this struggle, right? A lot of us have different capacities. A lot of us have different strengths. A lot of us have different connections, different circles. A lot of us have different ways of being and a little different ways of thinking and approaching the world. And the best way, and again, Ahmad Badar said this yesterday, and it really resonated with me. There's no one way to liberty. There's no one way to freedom, and there's no one way to liberation. There's many ways, and we have to all approach it in the strongest ways we can within our capacities to get there. So what I want to challenge everybody, and if you can take a second before we transition to lunch, just put your thoughts. What's one thing that you could do moving forward for the Palestinian struggle? Whatever it is, whether that be that, I don't know, you're a photographer and you take amazing pictures and you can tell stories. You're a public speaker. You have connections with people in office. You can organize a rally. You can organize a fundraiser. You can even just have a circle and really convince at least one other person to see the Palestinian struggle. Whatever you can do, do it. And don't think it's not enough. Because if you think it's not enough, then no one should think anything is enough, right? So you have to think, I am here for a reason. I am put on this earth for a reason. And right now, this Palestinian struggle is at the forefront of a lot of our thoughts and a lot of our memories. What can I do for Palestine? What can I do to leave an imprint? Because, at the end of the day, people say this, that a lot of different atrocities have happened in history. And we always ask ourselves, oh, if I was there in that time, I would have done X, Y, and Z, and then it would have never happened. But now we're living that history, right? We're living that history where one day our children, our grandchildren, the future generations will say, Mom, Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, you were there. What happened? What did you do, right? And what response will you have? And if you believe in God in any shape or form, we also have to respond to God at the end of the day as well. And that's also going to be asked, what did you do? What was your responsibility? You were living in this time, you were living in this earth, you were experiencing these people, and God, and the way that technology works, everything's right here, everything's on our phone. So you can see everything. So there's no lack of not knowing what's happening. You know what's happening. So what can you do, right? And I see some really beautiful things like writing about Palestine, publishing photos, keep learning and networking, keep organizing, fundraising, attracting talent, all these beautiful things, keep them coming in the chat. And I want to remind you all that PACC is your censor, whether you're in New Jersey, whether you're not in New Jersey, whether you're in America, not in America, we are here for you. And we want you to know that we want you all to utilize PACC for you. So if you have an idea, if you see a speaker that you're like, oh, I'd love to have this person come to PACC, if you have an idea of something that you'd like to see, please shoot us an email. I can't promise we're going to make every idea happen because that's our staff is very limited and our capacity is limited. And that's where I ask you to see the donate here button because the more you donate, the more we can increase our capacity. But we will try our best to bring all these ideas to life. And I'll end with this is that even the conference itself, in many ways, was a bunch of ideas coming together. And it's what fruitioned and brought the conference to life. The center itself was a bunch of ideas together, and it's what brought it to life. And I think what we have to do is keep having these ideas, keep having these conversations, and keep finding ways to move forward and bring community. And with that, I want to say that it's my honor and privilege to be able to serve in this capacity because I think that even though the last few months have been very difficult, I think it's what's actually kept me sane because this is my way of contributing back to the Palestinian struggle. It's my way of finding sanity in this world of insanity. So I want to thank you all for believing in the center. I want to thank you all for supporting the center. I want to thank you all for being part of this conference. And I want you all to just continue supporting, continue being, and continue yelling as loud as possible until the whole world hears us and until we see a free Palestine. So thank you all so much. I know I went over time, but I got passionate and I just kept going. Thank you. So I think now we're going to transition, Bess, we're going to transition to lunch. So we're going to transition to lunch. We'll be back at, that's not what time will we be back at?
Thank you, Rania. If everyone can come back at 2:55 so we can start at 3. As we said, there was a change in schedule, so Dr. Hussam Zumlat will be joining us last. So please plan to come back and be signing on by 2:55 and stay on until 5:30. You want to hear all these amazing sessions. Thank you.
We also won't be turning off the Zoom. We're going to be playing our sponsors video just in case if anyone comes on. But please do make it a point to come back. These speakers are really excited to address you all, and they're wonderful speakers, and we're really excited to have them. So we'll update the group. We'll update the WhatsApp group, but please, we hope to see you guys in a little. Enjoy your break, enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you in a few.